Platt, and today we try the Irish Lager. That's the next Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Harp Lager. It is part of the Diageo portfolio of beers. A little background into Harp. Harp is an Irish lager that was produced or created back in 1959. It was originally brewed at the Great Northern Brewery in Dundalk. Hopefully I said that right. The beer was released the next year in 1960 by Guinness. It was kind of their answer or response to continental lagers coming into the Irish and British beer market. Apparently that was about the time kind of the taste bud shift. Generally lagers were considered kind of a German, Czech, Pilsner kind of thing, along with Heineken, of course. And they were coming into the market, and Guinness wanted to combat that. They ended up bringing in a German brewer because they had produced ales all this time, and a lot of the brewers, and so they brought in a German brewer to help them perfect their own lager. They went through several names before they got to Harp: Atlas, Krista, Dolphin. If things could have worked out differently, we could have been drinking a pint of Dolphin. The next year in 1961, Guinness went ahead and formed a consortium of other breweries to help execute this beer, not just with the brewing aspects, but with the marketing aspects of this beer. This included, of course, Guinness itself, Bass, Courage, Scottish, and Newcastle, just to name a few brands. But they wanted to, there was kind of a feeling, hey, we need to get together on this lager thing. And that's what they ended up doing. In 1964, they introduced Harp as a draft beer, and it quickly became the top seller in the draft lager category. 15 years later, Courage and also Scottish and Newcastle end up leaving the consortium. Apparently, over the years, several breweries kind of came in and out of this consortium until Diageo just kind of bought everything out. In 2005, Diageo Ireland decided to split Harp off separately from Guinness, kind of give it its own identity. Let's kind of do its own thing, similar to the way like Budweiser may, Anheuser-Busch may pull a brand off, or like Firestone Walker, I remember, and 805 or whatever, kind of create the separate marketing arm for that, and that's what they did. In 2013, the last Harp was brewed at the Great Northern Brewery. Diageo today has moved that to the St. James Gate Brewery in Dublin, where apparently they produce other Diageo brand beers, kind of getting everything in-house there. Now, there's no line of Harp. Harp was kind of a one-off beer, again, to compete with the continental lagers. It fits in the Diageo portfolio. Guinness has its own portfolio, and that's kind of the main part of the Diageo portfolio, but there's some other beers in there. There's like Smithwick's at 4.5% ABV, classic Irish Red Ale. Another Irish Red Ale is Kilkenny at 4.3% ABV. They have one that I had not heard of before called Hop House 13, 4.1% ABV, another pale lager, because apparently we need more pale lagers. And finally, an interesting beer that I'm going to keep my eye out for is called Tusker. It is 4.2% ABV. It's another pale lager, but it's produced in Kenya. And I always think that's cool when I see beers from Africa, or kind of non-traditional beer markets. I always think that's kind of cool. Well, before we try this particular lager, though, let's check out the stats. So before I try this beer, I wanted to talk about real quick, in doing research for this video, but also the last 2-3 years I've been doing Platt's Beer of the Week, my perspective on the European beer drinker has changed from when I first started in the bar business drinking beers. I was always under the perception, especially when I started working the casino stuff and interacting with European clientele, that the European beer drinker, especially the English and Irish and Scottish beer drinker, they're ale guys, the classic old ales, and that us Americans, we fell for the lager thing, especially the adjunct lager. And that, yes, the Germans drink lager, but those are classic style lagers, and of course Heineken exist. but that Europeans were ale drinkers. That's not true. True, my research. The fear that Guinness did have back in 1960 kind of came true. Lagers did take over. We think about like in England, you think of something like a Newcastle. But Carling is their number one selling beer. Carling is a pale lager. Ireland, we naturally think Guinness. But Harp is the big seller over there. They sell a lot of Guinness overseas, but over there, Harp is the number one selling beer. Even like Belgium, which we think, oh, they have those great Trappist ales and, Saisons, farmhouse ales. If you're in Belgium, you have to be drinking Chimay all the time, right? How about Stella? They apparently, especially the younger crowd, really likes the Pilsners, their neighbor Germany and Czech Republic. We get to the Mediterranean. Of course, the Greeks have Mythos. That's a green bottled pale lager. And even a wine country like Spain, I'm going to butcher this, has Mahou, which is a lager beer. Lagers did take over. There, if you're in a bar or pub, and even American light beers, Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Lite, have really made ways into that market. Not just the hotel that caters to the American tourist, but just in general. Lagers did take over. I find that quite interesting, because again, I've always been kind of sold, well, they're more sophisticated than us, Americans on beer, and I bought it too. Apparently they like a pint of really light, fizzy beer, themselves. But I just found that interesting. It's not a derogatory thing. You drink what you drink. I've always been on that. But again, kind of I don't want to say beer snobbery, because I love those pub-style beers. But just kind of being sold that they would never fall for the lager thing was quite interesting. Well, enough about that. Let's actually drink a lager. Alright, we got a nice almost finger of white foam, plenty of bubbles. This is a golden color to it, a little darker than our kind of light adjunct lagers. Not quite a light copper, but a good golden color. And the nose, I get a classic European malt. There's something different about even like American, like your premium lagers, like a Budweiser or a full kind of body lager, like a lot of the breweries I've talked about before do kind of their regular guy beer, kind of a straight American lager. Something about the malt note on the European style lagers compared to the Americans a little different, and I note that on here. No real hops on the nose. That's nice. That's a nice little beer. There's something a little deeper about the malt notes than the American lagers are doing here. I think the average Bud Miller Coors drinker would drink this, but I think they also would say, hey, this is different. You could not have handed this to someone and said, oh, this is Budweiser, or this is Miller High Life, or whatever. They would definitely not catch that. But body-wise, it's fairly similar. Actually, boy, it's been a while since I had a Harp. This is not too bad, because again, it gives you the things you like in a traditional lighter lager, whether it's, light calorie-wise or just light body-wise. Easy drinking going down, plenty of carbonation that kind of gives it a certain effervescence. Again, you're not getting hit in the head with hops, but there's something about that mash bill, and I'd love to know that mash bill, that just adds some more complexity to it than Heineken, the Continental lager in Europe, and then Bud Miller Coors here. So not a bad little beer. I might have to revisit Harp more often. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Until next time. Bottoms up.